Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County Forum for Candidates for Representative, Position 2 for District 21. I'm Sue Renhard, a member of the League. This forum is being live streamed to our League YouTube channel. To those with us virtually, welcome. Let me provide some background on this position. Members of the legislature enact or reject legislation affecting public policy in the state, provide for the levy and collection of taxes and other revenue to support state government, and assist local government and appropriate funds for these purposes. The House is made up of 98 members, 2 from each legislative district in the state. The total membership of the House is up for election each even-numbered year. This is a partisan office, and candidates may declare a party affiliation. Candidates for Representative Position 2 from Legislative District 21 this year are Kristina Mitchell, Lillian Ortiz-Self, Bruce Guthrie. It is the policy of the League to be nonpartisan. Therefore, we neither endorse nor oppose candidates or parties. The rules for participation in this forum were sent ahead of time to all candidates. They have agreed to follow them, and I will enforce them. I will pose the questions and will clearly state the amount of time allowed for each answer. We are using a countdown timer visible to all candidates. Time limits on answers will be strictly enforced. The order of response for the first question will be Candidate Mitchell, Candidate Ortiz-Self, and Candidate Guthrie. Let's begin. Candidates will have 90 seconds to respond to this first question. Candidate Mitchell, the first question is, what are the top 2 or 3 issues you feel need to be addressed by this office or position? Please explain why you're focusing on these issues. You need to unmute yourself.
I apologize for that. Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My top priority is education, funding, and taxes. Why I say that is because education is the most important thing right now, and will and always will be. We need to ensure that the quality of education is not decreasing or declining as it is currently right now. We need to refer back to the McCleary decision, which we have not done since day one. That is a big deal. Not only is that a court-ordered mandate, it is also in our Washington State Constitution that our schools are fully funded. And clearly that's not happening. We're having kids that are failing for no reason whatsoever besides the lack thereof. As far as funding needs to be appropriated a lot better. It's being appropriated to the wrong things. And if we don't get that budget or that spending under control, we're not going to get the results that we're going to need. Taxes, everybody is struggling with taxes. They keep rising, especially in Snohomish County. Our sales tax went up 2% already, and our property taxes are 44% higher than they should be already. And why? We don't actually have knowledge of really why.
Thank you. And Candidate Ortiz-Self, same question.
Thank you very much. I think there's many issues that we need to address, but for me, if I have to pick top, some of them, I would prioritize living wage jobs. We know inflation's hitting our families. They need to be able to put food on the table. Making sure that we stay on top of inflation, I think, is very critical. I would say education funding. It is our constitutional mandate to do that. And we know that there are some districts across the state of Washington really falling behind. A lot of it has to do with the fact that in our state, we don't have an income tax to fund education. And so pulling from the same pool has made it very difficult. And then I would say human services, because human services helps to meet, when you meet the needs such as childcare, substance abuse, mental health, you're also meeting the needs of community safety, you're meeting the needs of homelessness, you're addressing many other issues when you address this issue, and we can't just keep ignoring it. We need to be able to invest in it. Our families deserve better. Our families want to be able to provide for themselves and their children and give them the future that we all want for our children. And I think addressing some of these issues get us on the right track.
Thank you. Candidate Guthrie, same question.
Hi there. Well, I'm Bruce Guthrie. I'm a 61-year-old retired operations, sales, and marketing executive with a second career in teaching. I've lived in Edmonds since 2008 and moved from the Midwest to Washington State in 1994. Me and my wife, Julia, we have 3 kids in local private schools. My top 3 issues, Lillian Ortiz-Self mentioned state sales tax, and I believe that she would just love to implement one in Washington State. One of my top issues is to oppose that. I would vote against a state income tax every time it's proposed. I also want to cut sales taxes and property taxes, and I want to cut state spending by even more in order that we may fully fund the rainy day fund. Ms. Ortiz-Self mentioned inflation. Government spending is one of the main causes of that inflation. And she also mentioned living wage jobs. The high burden of taxation in this country, in this state, is one of the reasons that living wage jobs are being destroyed or are not being created. It's hurting small business, and small business is the source of over half of our job creation in this state. I think we ought to have school choice. I think we need to have different transportation priorities, and I think we need term limits.
Thank you. For question number 2, we will begin with candidate Ortiz-Self. What qualifications and experiences make you a good choice to address these issues?
Thank you very much. I have served as your state representative here in the 21st. I serve on the Labor Committee, on the Education Committee, and the Human Services Committee. But more importantly, I'm a mom who has raised children in the Mukilteo area, who is a school counselor, a mental health counselor. I ran a mental health center. I have a master's in public administration and a master's in counseling. I have dedicated my whole career to working with children and families to give them the opportunities that I was lucky enough to be afforded to me with the protections that were in place. And I want our children and our families to have the same. I hear their stories. I have regardless of the qualifications and the years of experience that I have served in my community. More importantly, I hear the stories of our young people. I hear the stories of our teachers. I hear the stories of our frontline workers. I hear the stories of our children. I hear their hopes, their dreams. I hear their aspirations. I also hear their barriers. I want to make sure that I am a voice for those who are the most vulnerable, and that they get an opportunity to succeed from every policy that we put in the state of Washington equally across the state. Thank you.
Candidate Guthrie.
Well, I have a bachelor's degree from Cornell University. I have an MBA from Northwestern, the J.L. Kellogg Graduate School of Management. And I have a master's in teaching from Seattle U that I got back in 2008 when I reformulated my career. So I know an awful lot about education. I taught for almost 10 years at Western Washington University in their College of Business and Economics. And what I learned is that this government school system that we have now is failing the poorest. And it needs to be radically changed. And the fundamental problem that it has is that the schools have no competition. The poorest are trapped in their local schools. If they don't like it, if they're not meeting their needs, they can't move. So the schools don't have an incentive to improve or to change. I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I can send my kids to private schools. My eldest spent 2 years at a government school, Mukilteo Elementary, where he was bullied, where his IEP was a major pain and wouldn't get him the accommodations that he needed. And we got into one of these private schools and everything was better. They treated us like a customer. I want there to be vouchers so that the very poorest are not trapped in a government system that's trying to make itself a near monopoly.
Thank you. Candidate Mitchell.
Yes, I'm going to piggyback off of both of them and actually kind of say I have the same exact education as both of them. However, mine emphasizes in psychological behaviors, abnormal behaviors, as well as education and a law background. My education alone allows me to actually actively work as an educator in the Mukilteo School District number 6. And I can tell you that I am presently involved in the school district, in the school system, and I am presently able to reach out to these kids. And I have a 15-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 2.5-year-old. And I can tell you right now that things have drastically changed since either one of them probably have seen a classroom. And I can tell you that when I decided to walk out of the school district altogether was the day that those students decided to say that I deserve to be shot because I'm white. So things need to change drastically in the education system. And I actually have a master's degree in counseling as well as Lillian, as well as education and family law and juvenile law. I do reach these kids daily. That's what I do. That is my specialty. And that is what I do to create change in our community, win or lose.
Thank you. Timer, please note that the candidates will have 60 seconds for the remainder of the questions. Please adjust the clock accordingly. If elected, what will be your funding priorities? Candidate Guthrie, you're first.
Well, the most important function of the state is the defense of our equal individual rights to life, liberty, and property. And I understand the state constitution also requires that we fund education. It doesn't require that we run education. I would love to see a full ride voucher given to the bottom half based on income and assets so that they could go to any school that made sense for them. What we're doing now is we're spending more per student. Here's a chart of our spending. Oh, you can't read it. Can't read my chart. I was going to be like Ross Perot. School spending has gone up to $18,287 per student from $14,000 back in 2019. And average private school tuition in this state is $13,233. The private schools are doing a better job with less money. We should farm this business out.
Thank you. Candidate Mitchell, same question.
Okay, so if elected, my funding priorities would be education, parks, lake, and wildlife, and roads and transportation. We're not, like I said before, we are not appropriating our tax dollars to the correct thing. So we need to prioritize education, our parks, lakes, and wildlife, and roads and transportation, period.
Thank you.
I mean, that's all. I mean, there's really no argument about that.
Candidate Ortiz-Self, same question.
Yes, thank you very much. I think it's important that we take a comprehensive view. One of the things I've learned very quickly, I went to the legislature to deal with education. And one of the things you learn very quickly when you're there is that you can't deal with education without dealing with all the other issues. So education, definitely a top priority. It is in our Constitution. It opens the doors for our children and their future. But in addition to that is looking at making sure that we have a stable workforce. It's making sure we have infrastructure that supports that, that brings people into our cities and into our towns. It's making sure that human services and the needs of our families are being met. Because we have a community, we could have great schools, but we have a substance abuse issue. It makes our community is unsafe. So taking this comprehensive view at making sure that the needs of our families and what they're telling us every time I knock on a door is met, I think will be crucial in prioritizing our funding next year.
Thank you. And what actions would you take, or what policies would you endorse, if any, to address homelessness in your district? Candidate Mitchell, you are first on this question.
I would absolutely advocate for no camps and advocate for mandatory treatment. I live in an area where my entire life have only known this type of leadership, this type of administration. So when I see a camper decide to pop a tent in our unincorporated communities where we pay higher taxes at some, point in time to keep our community safe and free of encampments and whatnot, I would advocate strongly to ban them, because if we ban them, then they will have to be forced to go get treatment, or they will have to be forced to be in shelter. Put the priority there and just get it done and implement an infrastructure or a plan to get them on the right up and up.
Thank you. Candidate Ortiz-Self. Same
Thank
question.
you. Thank you. Yes, I think it's not an easy answer. If it was, it would have been solved a long time ago. I don't think any of us want to see people with housing insecurity. And as a school counselor, I am a current school counselor. I see it every day. I see children who are living out of their cars. It's a very sad and tragic situation in our neighborhoods, which we don't want to acknowledge, right? Often. A comprehensive approach that makes sure that we're looking at things like building jobs in our community, our mental health, local mental health services and infrastructure, addressing substance abuse is very critical. Things like childcare, looking at housing needs. I think all of these things have to be looked at because these are human beings with needs, and they affect our communities and they affect their children. And we either put the money at the end or we put it at the beginning. I'd like to put it at the beginning.
Candidate Guthrie.
Well, Kristina, you can't ban peaceful people from being in public. I was just arrested for collecting signatures in a public park, ballot signatures. So I don't think that's the solution. But the solution is when you find yourself at the bottom of a hole, you stop digging. Right now, what we're doing is we're subsidizing the problem. And when you subsidize something, it's something I learned teaching in the College of Business and Economics. When you subsidize something, you get more of it. When you tax something, you get less of it. We're taxing economic activity, so we're getting less of that. We're getting less job creation. And we're subsidizing homelessness. We're giving people free needles. We're giving people free tents. Instead of what private charities can do is they can say, look, you can come in and stay with us, but you have to leave your drugs and your alcohol behind. They have way more, a way better success rate than the government, which is just subsidizing the problem. The more we spend on it, the more we're going to get. And Lillian's policies have been a complete failure.
You agreed not to criticize your opponents. Please follow that rule.
No, I'm sorry. A point of information. I agreed not to insult her personally, but I can criticize her policies all I want, and that's all I did.
Well, I think you agreed to the candidate forum rules.
I did.
And I believe that included making
I haven't made a personal attack would be insulting the way she looks or calling her stupid. And I would never do that.
This is not.
I was addressing the points.
You have criticized her policies. And I think we agreed that that was not appropriate.
Nope, we never
Please
agreed to that,
explain
and I'm going to keep on
how,
doing it.
please explain how you think public schools should be funded. Are there changes or additions to the existing code that you would recommend? Please explain. Candidate Ortiz-Self, you're first on this question.
Thank you very much. I believe that it is our paramount duty to fund education. And I think we have school districts that are falling behind. A lot of it because of COVID and other issues. And the issue we have here in the state is that we do not have an income tax. I don't allow other people to speak for my view. I know that my constituents have voted down an income tax, and I respect that. So what that means is that we have to work within our existing system, which is our federal funding, state funding, and local levies. That's what we've been doing. However, we're going to have to invest more dollars into this because we have children that are falling behind. And so we've got to figure out, do we open up some more of the local levy dollars? Our school funding formula doesn't seem to be working. It might have worked with McCleary and then quickly fell behind. The minute it passed, we fell behind again with inflation. We need to relook at our school funding formula for sure.
Thank you. Candidate Guthrie.
The government schools are failing, especially in poor and urban areas. Since a higher percentage of poor urban people are BIPOC, the effect of the failure of government schooling is racist. The fundamental reason for this failure is lack of incentive to improve. I send my 3 kids to 3 different private secular schools in the Puget Sound region. These are some of the most left-leaning, LGBTQ plus friendly and anti-racist places you can imagine. But the basic education is excellent. And the reason they're excellent is that they know we can leave if we don't like it. And they charge tuition, but they give generous scholarships and aid to poor applicants. The schools compete with each other on service quality, but the government schools try to force local kids to go there. They force us all to pay for them, despite their broad failure. Competition, instead of monopoly, is the solution to improve government schools. To this end, vouchers and charter schools are both steps in the right direction.
Thank you. Candidate Mitchell.
Again, I'm going to piggyback off of education. We've had leadership in office for a very long time, and we are continuing to decline and fail our students and our kids. And it is required by the McCleary decision still to this day for our legislators and our elected officials to properly, fully fund public schools to make sure that they have the absolute resources that they can to have a successful experience for these students. We don't necessarily need to all go to private school and or charter schools, because I can guarantee you this much, that probably either the other two don't really kind of consider, is that kids rely on public schools because they get 2 meals a day and a break from their foster family.
Thank you. What, if any, environmental legislation or regulation is a priority for you? Candidate Mitchell, you're first.
I would say just stop littering. I mean, like that, how are you going to really enforce that? That's been going on my entire life. I'm 39 years old. The priority is making sure that our lakes, our wildlife, and our total environment is kept up. I mean, for example, I live in unincorporated Snohomish County in Lynnwood, and we're completely ignored by our county council members as well as our state reps. And we have been begging and pleading for our conservation and our lakes to be actually attended to. The last time they were attended to was 1999. They just did a brief study for $50,000. Now today would be $500,000. And we need to get these things prioritized because we're actually damaging wildlife around our lakes in Snohomish County and the people who live on the lakes. And it's a huge tax issue, funding issue, but we need to prioritize better with that.
Thank you. Candidate Ortiz-Self. Same question.
Yes, thank you. I've been working on ensuring things like our culverts, our water streams, our air, those issues are, there's constant policy around every one of those. Fishing rights of our tribes, our electric vehicle, electrifying our ferry system has been another issue that we've worked really hard on. And how do we incentivize electric vehicles on our roads in order to help with that issue as well? Looking at our parks and our wildlife, looking at the use of electricity. There are so many of those aspects that we've been looking at in order to protect. Our culverts and our waterways and our ferries are one that's very important to the 21st Legislative District. As you know, we border, two ferry systems. We have two ferry systems in our district. And so looking at how do we continue to update them and electrify them has been a very important issue for us as well.
Thank you. Candidate Guthrie.
When a corporation or an individual is harming other people through solid, air, or water pollution, the government should certainly police and prohibit that activity. I want clean air, land, and water. But current efforts to force people not to use fossil fuels by making them more expensive are hurting the poor, and they're yielding zero environmental protection. So I oppose carbon taxes, and I advocate technological advancement to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. The state is working really hard to ban natural gas. And they've fibbed to us that it's giving people asthma. And natural gas is what a lot of people like to cook on in their stoves. And they're going to force people to spend a lot of money, tens of thousands, maybe even $50,000 to upgrade their furnaces, their water heaters, and to do away with the natural gas. And it's all going to cost them more money, and it's all going to be more expensive, and it's going to hurt the poor, and it's going to hurt jobs. It's not worth it.
Thank you. Question number 7. How satisfied were you with the most recent Washington state redistricting process? And are there any changes to the process you would recommend? Please explain. Candidate Ortiz-Self, you are first.
Thank you. I think that it's very important for our state, for every member of our state to be represented. And so, we know that has not been the case. We know that we've had districts that are majority minorities and have not had proper representation in their state, in our state legislature. I think the steps that we took in the redistricting process this year has moved us closer to that, has taken a step to correct some of that in certain districts. But I think that's really critical. We need to make sure that everybody is represented and that there is not people that are being left behind, that are not having a voice in their children's education, in their children's living conditions, and who represents them. And so to me, every step we take in that direction is a very positive step.
Thank you. Candidate Guthrie?
So the two big political parties control the redistricting process to their own advantage. Until this political conflict of interest can be removed from the redistricting process, we will continue to have bad district borders that defend incumbents instead of recognizing coherent communities. Lillian Ortiz-Self is going to win in November with about 2/3 of the vote. And that's because this is a safe Democratic district. It's a safe Democratic district because the Democrats control the power in Olympia, and they've made it a safe Democratic district. As long as these two big political parties are involved in redistricting, we're never going to have justice. We're never going to have true democracy. So there needs to be a judicial involvement. There needs to be nonpartisan citizen involvement in the redistricting process. There needs to be some objective way to measure where a community starts and ends in order to do this properly. But as long as Lillian Ortiz-Self is involved, it's going to be corrupt.
Mr. Guthrie, you agreed, and this cannot continue. You will be placed in the waiting room if you continue to criticize the candidates. Miss Guthrie. Same question.
Miss Mitchell?
I'm sorry, Miss Mitchell.
That's okay. I lost my train of thought. However, yeah, I lost my train of thought with that last one.
Would you like
Can
the
you
question
quickly?
repeated?
Yeah, that would be great.
How satisfied were you with the
Oh,
most
I got it.
recent-
Okay, I got it. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. I'm not satisfied with it because our constitution actually says that redistricting happens every 10 years, and it's happened twice in the last 4. So, we need to kind of get a handle on how to follow the law. And I want to know why. Why do we keep redistricting? Is it because of the surge of people that are undocumented, unregistered to vote? Are merging to one area or the other? It's really affected Eastern Washington. Not, I mean, not it doesn't benefit really anybody for redistricting. Because we all have the same amount of allotted votes that we can get. So what is the point of redistricting every 2 years when it's constitutionally set in stone to redistrict every 10? I'd like to know why we can just kind of be really frugal and like freeless and careless about that law.
Thank you. And question number 8. What will you do, if anything, to support a vibrant economy in your district? We will begin with candidate Guthrie.
Well, the economy comes from entrepreneurship. It comes from businesses who are creating products that people want to buy and sell. And the biggest obstacle to that is the bad tax and regulation policy that's coming from Olympia. So I would dramatically reduce the B&O tax. I would dramatically reduce sales taxes. I would dramatically reduce property taxes so people would have more money to spend on products. You know, a marginal dollar spent by government creates fewer jobs than if that same marginal dollar had been kept in the hands of consumers. Government is more inefficient than the private sector. The private sector has market discipline, making it efficient. The system we have now is broken because the news media is in the pocket of the Democrats. And what that means is the incumbents do not get any criticism. If we also can't criticize the incumbents here in this forum, then we might as well go home.
Thank you. Question, let's see. I believe candidate Mitchell is next for the same question.
Great. Anything, period. Emphasize the benefits for small businesses. Get behind them, the good ones, not the ones that are trying to unionize. Understanding that we normal people actually drive the economy and support that. Reach out to your community and just ask them what they need, because I can tell you what they need is for the government to keep their hands out of their pockets, because the taxes are way too much. I mean, the B&O taxes, like he said, that's unnecessary. These taxes, this. I mean, we are being taxed to work and we're being taxed to spend our money. Let's stop that. That's insane. We have money in our budget.
Thank you. Candidate Ortiz-Self.
Thank you. I think, especially in the 21st, and something that I have fought hard for is to support our small businesses, whether it's through small business loans or policies that help them to continue to increase and be able to be profitable. We have a lot of small businesses, both in Mukilteo and Edmonds, Lynnwood, unincorporated. I think it's important that we continue to support that. But I also think that the policies that I said I prioritize are important. Things like infrastructure in our schools, childcare so that people can get back to work, human services and substance abuse. All of these issues, when they address community safety, are going to help our communities. When our schools are doing well, it helps bring people into our communities. When we have jobs and an infrastructure that gets them in and out of our cities in a productive way, all of that helps to increase the economic vitality of our communities and our cities. And I would support every one of those.
Thank you. And our next to the last question, and we will begin with candidate Mitchell. What is your approach to funding transportation? Are there projects you would prioritize or changes to current priorities you would recommend? Please explain.
Yes, I would slow way down on electrifying everything. We are not certain that our electrical grid can handle that. Our fleet that we have already is fine. Modify and update what we have. Like, do not waste tax dollars on something that our actual system cannot support right now. We are being pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to go electric everything so fast that it's, like somebody else said on here, it's affecting people already. I mean, my husband's already been forced to work out of state since March, since the no gas ban tax. He's HVAC and he's union. We need to keep our people here. We need to not be forced out of state to go and provide for our families. And that's what's happening with this whole, change everything electric. We would need to slow way the heck down. It's too much.
Thank you. Candidate Ortiz-Self.
Thank you. I think one of the ways that because of our limited funds, one of the ways that we're trying to address some of our infrastructure needs are through the Climate Act, which, as you know, is on the ballot this year. If that loses, we lose millions and billions of dollars from our infrastructure package that is going to fund things like our bridges. We have bridges that are due to be fixed. We have a transportation problem as far as the grid, where people are taking way too long to get to jobs, which affect communities. We have ferries that are broken down and sitting on the side because they need fixing. Electrifying them is fixing them and saving us millions of dollars in the cost of operation. So looking at all of that comprehensively is very critical. And the Climate Act commitment initiative is one of the ways we could fund that.
Thank you. And candidate Guthrie.
More spending is not the answer. We've been spending more and more and more for decades. The state budget is almost $60 billion. And back in 2005, it was half that. They're spending more and traffic is getting worse. The amount of, according to a study by Arizona State University, traffic hours wasted in Seattle, it's the 10th worst urban area for traffic. And people in this state waste billions and billions of hours in needless delays on I-5. So the Olympia is spending more money on buses and trains, and people don't want buses and trains. The demand is on I-5. What the people are demanding with their cars is another lane on I-5. And the Olympia is being arrogant and saying, no, you can't have what you want. We're going to give you this thing that you don't want. And as long as they keep spending more money, it's going to keep getting worse.
Thank you. And now we've come to the last question, and it is this. Please tell us something about your life experience that might surprise or intrigue voters. Candidate Guthrie, you may begin.
Well, I am the 2024 U.S. long track speed skating national champion in the 60 to 64 age class. I got that because only 3 guys showed up in my age class. But also, I'm a passionate educator and a big fan of homeschooling. You know, if you compare homeschooling with private schools, homeschooling actually has better outcomes. The students are better educated, they get into better schools, and it costs less. And I want everybody to be free. I want parents to be free to choose their own kind of education. I want people to be free to choose their own transportation places. And as long as we have career politicians, we're going to continue to get increased corruption. If I were given this much power, I would soon be corrupt too. The solution is to reduce the power in Olympia and the money in Olympia.
Candidate Ortiz-Self.
Thank you. I'd like to say that I am a very proud product of our public school system. Raised by a Latina mom, in a time where there were a lot of limitations and barriers that I had to overcome, in a school system where I had teachers who cared and made a difference, and open pathways for me to get 2 master's degrees, to be able to run mental health centers, to be able to work for systems and make changes. I have devoted my whole career to helping those most vulnerable, because I believe that if you help those that are the most vulnerable, your society thrives. And I believe everyone is better off for it, because nobody wants to see people hurting on the streets. And we make a difference in our school system. We make a difference in our job force. We make a difference in our community safety. And I am committed to that. And I'm a proud supporter of public education.
Thank you. And candidate Mitchell.
Okay. What would surprise voters about me? I don't really know anymore, but I am 39. I have a 21-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 2.5-year-old. Yes, you all can do the math. I don't care. Everybody does. I married my high school sweetheart, the father of all 3 of my kids. We've been together since we were 14. He is originally from Darwin, Northern Territories, so I do have a mixed race family. If you look up what a Torres Strait Islander is, Aboriginal to be specific, that is my husband, and he is awesome. He is a labor union worker for Smart Union. He's HVAC. So Local 66. I'm a huge supporter in that. Been in the union our whole life, and if it wasn't for the benefits and whatever have you, we wouldn't be where we're at today. I'm also multilingual in Spanish, sign language, Norwegian, and a few other.
Thank you. We've come to the end of our candidate forum, and the league thanks the candidates for joining us and for running for office. A recording of this forum and others can be found on the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County website, YouTube, and podcast channels. Find links at lwvsnoho.org. We encourage you to explore additional information about these and all candidates. Vote411.org, sponsored by the League, is another good source of information. The Snohomish County voter pamphlet will be mailed starting July 17th. Ballots will be mailed starting July 18th, and primary election day is Tuesday, August 6th. Please be a voter. Thank you to our League Candidates Forum team, and a special thanks to Dave Moon and the Sultan school students at turkpride.tv who made this live stream possible. And of course, thank you all for joining us. This concludes our candidate forum.